Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is September 2nd, 2021. Thank you so much for joining me to discover the truth beneath the surface. It's good to be back. I haven't made a video in a few days. I've been rather busy, but I've been looking forward all day to getting some time to record and to communicate once again with my wonderful audience. I really do appreciate all the support. Thank you so much. So tonight I'm actually going to talk about something a little bit different, something I haven't talked about. I've been doing recently some research into and I think I've mentioned this before on previous podcasts, but I've been doing a little bit of research and digging on the whole Trump time travel theory. And I stumbled upon the content of Jetson White. And I hadn't actually heard of Jetson White. In fact, there was a listener of my show who sent me a link to one of his videos. And that's how I discovered his channel. So I started watching a whole bunch of his videos. And it really has broadened my understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, or at least it presents a very, very plausible theory that's going to absolutely blow your mind if you haven't heard this stuff before. And for me, a lot of this information was new. And because you guys know, in the spirit of my channel, that's really what I'm all about, is sharing my knowledge and sharing the things that I have learned with you, because we're all in this process of learning and discovery together. Okay, so what really caught my interest was the whole, he has a playlist called the Trump Time Travel Series, but there are a whole bunch of other playlists. So what I've done is I've gone and looked at a whole bunch of his videos, and I've also checked out some other videos on other channels related to this topic and come up with some information. Now, some of the information, I hope everything in my presentation tonight is accurate. I may make a few mistakes here or there, but for the most part, I think I've put together a general gist of this overall theory. But in order to really set the table for that, we have to kind of discuss what's been going on behind the scenes that made time travel itself a fundamentally important part of this plan, according to this theory. Now, the Earth's natural frequency, or heartbeat, as I understand it, is something like 13 hertz. I believe it's like 13.13 or something like that, as God created it. The Earth, in its original creation, in its original form, had that frequency, a much, much higher frequency than it does now. And I'm going to talk about that, what it is now, in just a moment. And in addition to that, its poles were neutral. And so what happened is, and we've heard a lot about the background of how humanity was enslaved long, long ago by gene decode. But according to this theory, upon discovering everything here on Earth is magnetic, and because their very existence depends upon a highly polarized atmosphere and the feeding off of humans, both on an energetic and physical level, requires a low vibrational frequency on whatever planet they inhabit, the negative agenda aliens used their advanced technology to create what's called a soul trap for humanity on Earth, a matrix, if you will, by magnetizing Earth's poles and gradually lowering Earth's frequency to almost half of what it once was. So these negative agenda aliens, they sought to trap us here and to keep us trapped here through endless cycles of reincarnation by introducing a virus into our realm. And this virus is known as the 8, or the 8's virus, like the number 8. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that later. But they created this virus and introduced it into our realm, thereby creating this matrix that we believed to be reality this entire time. And as a part of their plan to thwart the ascension of humanity, they blocked the original crystal sun. By the way, you've heard Gene Decode talk about this on my show. So they blocked the original crystal sun, which had many purposes, which conflicted with the plans of God's enemies, of course. So to block the sun, they created an AI virus, essentially, known as the 8's virus, as I just mentioned. And they hid the crystal sun behind the sun, what we call the sun, which is really just a wall of flames. The crystal sun, according to Jetson's videos, has already exited this matrix on schedule before the fall. So basically what we have is a simulation of the sun. We have this wall of flames, but really the true sun is the crystal sun that has already ascended. Now, it's important to understand that human beings were created by God in 5D, essentially. Like Adam and Eve before the fall, they had the 12-stranded crystalline-based DNA. And according to my understanding, at the time of the fall, human DNA was lowered to 2-stranded carbon-based. So we were essentially cut off from higher levels of consciousness, and we were, in essence, as a species, left to our own devices. Naturally compassionate and trusting as we are, and left to our own devices, of course, we were very easily manipulated by the cabal. And what they've done, and I've talked about this in some detail, is they've kept us entirely transfixed on stimulation from the five senses rather than seeking within for guidance, for peace, for direction, and so forth. So the Q movement and the Q drops and the whole Great Awakening, what it's really doing is it's neutralizing this brainwashing process. And it's enabling human beings to experience the beginnings of higher levels of consciousness that we had before the fall, of course, and for us to experience, or at least begin experiencing, higher levels of consciousness before our full ascension to the fifth dimension. Now, how the enemy created this environment, I'm still doing some research into this, and I don't fully understand all the technical aspects. But as I mentioned before, this virus that the enemy created is known as the AIDS virus, whereby they shifted the poles, Earth's poles, out of their original neutral position and created this polarized environment, like I said, because their existence depends upon it. And they changed, so what they did was they created a polarized environment from what was originally a harmonious and perfectly balanced realm. One of the quotes that I really love from Jetson, one of his videos, he said, quote, "The hijackers also made adjustments to human DNA that allowed the ego mind to take over the seat of the soul, thus robbing humanity of a fair chance to learn how to live without constant interference and evil influence." Now, Tesla, we're going to talk a lot about him. Now, Tesla had a discovery that's known as the 369 discovery. And that was when, and again, this is my understanding. I could be wrong about some of this, but my understanding is that the 369 discovery was that when the mental and emotional field charges of human beings, the mental being represented by the 3, the emotional being represented by the 6, when these two field charges meet at a 90-degree angle, they zero out. And the 9 is then engendered. And by the way, the 9 represents the physical body. And when this happens, it transforms those at the right frequency into superconductors. I know this sounds crazy, and it's going to get even crazier. But this is actual real science. So specifically, Tesla observed, he said, quote, "When a pillar of sound is shot like a cannon into a pre-prepared region of the ionosphere with a deafening continuous blast, it triggers an ion avalanche that transforms the human body into a zero-point conductor." So sound waves, we've been told, and we've talked about this before, but we've been told that advanced physics has been kept hidden from the public because it really hides the true secrets of this realm, of this universe. These sound waves can be used to actually counteract gravity, which is going to enable humanity's escape from this matrix, of course, according to this theory. And that is what we like to call the rapture. I'm going to talk about this in more detail. But it's key to understand that the rapture, the entire rapture event, according to this theory, is a workaround from what was originally intended before by God, of course, before the hijacking of this system by these dark forces, these negative agenda aliens, and of course the hybrids they created here. But this rapture that we're going to experience, if this is true, is intended to give humanity a fair chance because the enemy cheated in this system. God had an original plan, but the enemy cheated and created this matrix that was so sophisticated with such advanced technology that we didn't even know we were in it. So how is this being pulled off? Well, it's being pulled off by allowing our 4 twin ascension stars to time tunnel inside essentially the dome of our atmosphere. And these ascension stars are stargates, so that they can then be used as jump zones by fleets of ascension, what they call ascension support vehicles, or ASVs for short, that have been arriving here by the thousands for many years. You've heard Gene Decode talk on my show about the enormous fleets that are here. He's actually said that if they weren't in stealth mode, we wouldn't even be able to see the sky. They're literally, these fleets are everywhere in our atmosphere. Now, the other key ingredient to this whole plan is Tesla's magnifying transmitter technology to generate the necessary terahertz speeds to transform the human body into a superconductor that can be levitated and loaded onto these ASVs, onto these ascension support vehicles. Now, I know this is just like mind-blowing, and some of you may be thinking, wow, that sounds completely crazy. But like I said, this is all based on real science, and I highly recommend that you go and watch Jetson White's videos and how he breaks this down. It's very, very plausible once you hear the whole story. And I'm going to do my best to tell you the whole story. So what is this rapture workaround really? It's essentially an application of advanced technology which will cause this ion avalanche generated by a combination of underwater radar arrays that all produce the same tone at once. And then that's going to be coupled with Tesla's magnifying transmitter technology. And so when these two waves meet each other, like I described before, the 369, when the two waves meet each other, one from underwater and one from above, and they meet from the sky and they meet at a 90-degree angle and zero out, they combine to form what's known as a mega resonant wave. And you can go online and you can actually see for yourself the Navy's new scalable radar tech that's produced by Raytheon. In fact, Jetson White has plenty of shots of it in his videos, which will be used for this event, which will literally cause us to temporarily, my understanding anyway, is it will literally cause us to temporarily lose form and be transformed almost into an ethereal form as superconductors and loaded onto these ships. And this radar tech just so happens to be in the shape of these hexagons, which can be seen, by the way, on Melania Trump's dress. I've talked before about, and 107, of course, had pointed this out, that the entire time Trump was in office, Melania played the role of the semaphore. So she was essentially sending coded messages, not, of course, by waving flags, but through her outfits. And this is a perfect example. Her dress, as the Trumps were leaving the White House, I believe they were in Florida, but this was right before the inauguration of fake Biden. she has this dress on. And on the dress, you can see that the pattern goes, first of all, it goes from dark to light. But not only that, the hexagons on her dress signify the Tesla tech, which is going to be used for this Rapture event. Not only that, 107, speaking of him, he has, in his book, he has the same hexagon on every single page. I think they're letting us know what's coming. 107 himself has said repeatedly that this is going to be a hand of God moment. That God is going to be doing something entirely new with humanity. And when you really stop and you really think about it, well, this could be what they're talking about. As mind-blowing as it is, this actually could be real. So when this rapture event happens, the entire world, within seconds, within a very, very short amount of time, will hear what will sound like a long trumpet blast. And this will be a 5D magnetron sound blast that will expand worldwide in seconds, like I said. And so every being in the world will hear it. And those humans whose frequency is within a certain range will have their bodies instantly transformed into superconductors, which would then enable our levitation and our organization by these positive agenda aliens, the Alliance, who are helping us out, and I would assume some divine elements as well, organizing us onto these ascension support vehicles, these ASVs. And then once we're loaded onto these ASVs, we'll jump from the Earth's sun gate to what I believe is pronounced the Alnitak Stargate. That's Alnitak. And from there to the Sirius Stargate, which will lead to humanity's destination, which is an entirely new, I guess you could call it, it's still 3D, but like a 3D plus system in the Sirius star system, an entirely new home that God has prepared for humanity to give us a second chance. Or really to give us a first chance that's fair to live in harmony, but more about that later. Now, also according to this theory, he talks about during the transport to the Sirius star system while we're on these spaceships. And I know this sounds crazy, and some of you folks can think it's crazy, and I wouldn't blame you. But I encourage you to go and do your own research and keep an open mind. But apparently this journey to what is being called Westworld, or the new West timeline. And by the way, as I was watching these videos, I was thinking to myself, isn't there a show, or wasn't there a show called Westworld? I think it was on HBO not long ago. I never watched it, but very interesting. But during the transport to this new West timeline, as we're journeying there, and actually right now we're in the process through our own imagination, and all the way through our journey to get there, a new timeline is being built out. So whatever has already been set in motion here on Earth regarding the framework of our new society, that of course we're attempting to build here based upon God's laws, a constitutional republic, etc., this will all be integrated into our new world. And so Trump's role in all of this was to basically to usher back our original form of government, which, as we all know, was a constitutional republic. And in so doing, ensure that our new timeline is built out properly to form a new republic. And as if this weren't exciting enough. It gets better and better. Each one of these ascension support vehicles, these ASVs, will be equipped with medbed light chambers, one for each human being that's being removed from the matrix. You recall I asked Gene Decode the question about availability of medbeds, because we've been hearing about medbeds, and most people think of it in terms of, well, there's probably, if they even do exist, there's probably only a few of them in the world. So how could they possibly really be of great assistance to humanity? And Gene's response to that simply was, there won't be any problem having enough medbeds. Of course, I'm paraphrasing essentially, but he said that availability would not be a problem, which also got me thinking, well, that's interesting, because that lines up with this very well. So apparently each one of these ASVs will be equipped with these med beds, or another term for them are light chambers. And reportedly, after 3 days in these healing containers or med beds, every human being will be on a level playing field from a physical standpoint. And our DNA will be restored to its original structure and design, the 12-stranded crystalline-based design. That's my understanding. Now, Jetson White reports that the light chambers, or these med beds, are known to repair DNA. And so his theory is that those who took the jab and survive will, well, if they survive until this rapture event, that they will be able to have this damage done to their genetics reversed. So hopefully that's true. He also claims that in his view, the jab is not the mark of the beast. We've heard Gene say that it is the mark of the beast, and he's laid out a very plausible case for that. But Jetson White claims that it's not, and he said that what really is the mark of the beast is our calcified, inactive pineal glands. And he argues that, like, having an inactive or a darkened, inactive pineal gland crystal, really is what it is the mark of the beast, because following and believing the image that's being broadcast by the beast, i.e., lacking the discernment that a fully functional pineal gland enables, instead of believing in God, is what causes the pineal to deactivate. And he also says that he believes that this near-death experience that we've been hearing so much about will be so intense that those who would choose good over evil, if they were ever given the fair chance to do so, will be shaken out of apathy and then ultimately saved from the damnation that faces all those who consciously side with evil. And it is true that God tells us, according to the Bible, that he's not willing that any soul should perish. So he's going to try to do everything that he can to give people the opportunity to make the right choice. And that's really the process that we've been undergoing this entire time. So this journey to our new home, this West world, supposedly will take 4 years. And during this journey aboard these spacecraft, human beings will undergo intensive training and education about our true history, about our natural and newfound spiritual powers, and how to navigate them. And really, the truth about the nature of our slavery. We're essentially going to have our new society's rule of law embedded into our genetic memory, written onto our hearts, as Jetson put it. And so then, therefore, we can pass that genetic memory and all that knowledge and truth on to future generations, so that they'll know how, first of all, they'll know our true history, and they'll understand how to protect and preserve liberty, above all. And he actually says that in this new world that religion isn't even going to be necessary because we're going to be in continuous contact with God because of the upgrade to our DNA. And, of course, access to the crystal sun for as long as we desire. So wrapping your brain around even what I've said so far, and I haven't even gotten into the time travel piece, is just truly amazing to think about this as a possibility. I know a lot of you out there are Christians. Not everyone, of course, but certainly consider the idea. I mean, I've thought a lot about the rapture, but I've never really thought about it in this type of a way. That it could actually be an event that could be both a divine and human event at the same time. And that it could, in essence, that it would require this off-world technology, these stargates and all of these positive agenda aliens helping us. But at the same time, it would also involve technology that was created by Tesla. This is just a fascinating concept. But it's important to understand that once our DNA is repaired in the med beds and our pineal crystal is healed and it's once again activated, and we're in the presence of the true crystal sun, that we will be able to constantly commune with God for as long as we like and experience humanity's first true golden age. But by calcifying the pineal gland and hiding our true sun behind this wall of fire, and then creating this magnetically polarized environment, the cabal kept us largely cut off from this communion with God, with our Creator, because they sought to usurp God's role, you see. And it's also important to understand that God is enabling the repair of our DNA to give us the necessary upgrades that we need to experience our first real golden age. Could be 1,000 years of peace. It could be thousands of years of peace, however long we want it to go on. And this hellish near-death experience is really intended to be, like I said, permanently embedded into the genetic memory of humanity to ensure that this never ever happens again. And the reason this event is often referred to as the Rapture Workaround is because it's essentially God's countermove to the enemy's hijacking of our system. And of course, that's where I began our chat tonight. The original ascension plan of humanity was intended to occur naturally and by gradual acquisition of knowledge about time and space and stargate travel. And without interference, we were intended to travel beyond this realm by traveling to the sun gate and eventually understanding and having the technology to be able to use it. And we would have done that, and we would have gotten out of this 3D matrix, this holographic matrix, probably, long ago by way of the first Stargate jump through that sun gate. But Jetson explains that the first jump from the sun gate, he calls it I believe it's the Eye of Horus or Eve's Eye. It's actually an eye-shaped transport bay where both west and east jump gates or jump zones are located. So once we ascend, these areas, had we ascended, these areas would have been very, very clear to us, and we would have made this jump on our own. And that was God's original plan. And all of these ASV fleets and Tesla tech wouldn't have been required without enemy interference. Maybe some Tesla tech, because that man, he created just about everything that modern society functions on. It's absolutely amazing, but I won't get into that right now. But when we talk about a polarized a polarized world, what we're really talking about is this computer virus that I mentioned before called the Endless Eights, that the Cabal infected into our system. And actually, it was really the Reptilians who did this. That's my understanding. The Cabal later, of course, did their part to infect our system in all of these other ways. But originally, I believe that the virus, this computer virus that infected our system and threw off the natural sacred geometry of our system and magnetized and manipulated the magnetics of Earth to create this polarized environment, that was done, I believe, by the Reptilians. And so they were able to change the original magnetics of Earth using, I don't really know how they did it. I mean, I need to do more research on that, but clearly they used advanced non-terrestrial technology. And this was done, like I said, most likely, I think it was done by the Reptilians and perhaps some other forces, but I think the Reptilians were directly involved with this. And what they did was they used this technology to shift Earth's natural magnetics from a neutral position to a polarized one because, again, their life forms can only be sustained in a polarized environment. So when they came to Earth and they realized that Earth was perfectly balanced and harmonious, they had to change it because they couldn't survive. Dark forces can't survive. Their frequency is too low. They can't survive in these environments. They needed to lower Earth's frequency and create a polarized environment of all these opposites, all these divisions. And that's exactly the world we have today. That's their world. That's their mind. That was their creation. It's not God's creation. They tampered with God's creation, and God and Tesla and all the white hats and Trump have something to say about that. At the current polarized state of Earth, it looks, on a diagram, it looks like a pyramid on top of an inverted pyramid. But this is not how Earth was created. Rather, the Merkaba, and you've probably heard Juan O'Sabin mention that term plenty of times if you listen to him. The Merkaba looks like a 3D Star of David. And it's the visual representation of the original magnetics of Earth. A perfectly balanced and harmonious geometry. And all you have to do is look at the diagrams for yourself. Go watch the videos. You'll be able to see, for those of you who are more visual. Now, when the magnetics of Earth are restored back to neutral, the entire realm becomes a superconductor. Going back to the 369 that I explained before, which will enable us to be levitated onto these ASVs. So it's important to understand the essential elements of this Rapture workaround event. That's why I've been talking so much about this before I get into the time travel elements. Because if Tesla's technology wasn't hidden and suppressed, Stargate travel would have already been commonplace and humanity would have already ascended. And this is why the Cabal hid the secrets of not only advanced physics, but also space travel. They specifically denied humanity space travel because they knew that it was going to lead to our ascension and expose this matrix and allow us to escape from it, so they couldn't have that. So then the question becomes, how does Trump tie into all of this? Now, what connection does Trump have to Tesla? What's that all about? Well, it turns out that Tesla discovered time travel by experimenting. This was, I believe, way back in 1896. He discovered time travel by experimenting with electromagnetic properties. He sat in between two arc transformers and reported that he could see past, present, and future simultaneously, all at once. And Jetson White actually shows a time displacement pattern from 2006 in his videos, which is one of many since Tesla's discovery. And the abstract matches the description of John Titter's time travel device that was described in an online forum in 2000. Now, John Titor, if you've never heard his name, he claimed that he showed up in, I believe it was 1999, and he started writing as John Titor. That was his handle name on all of these online forums. And he claimed that he was a time traveler from the year 2036. And that he'd come back in time because his future timeline had been ravaged by corruption and disease and devolution and nuclear war. And we're going to get into more of his story later, but for now, just keep in mind that he posted way back in 2000 pictures of the time travel device he claimed got him here from the year 2036. And that 2006 patent that I mentioned a moment ago matches essentially what he produced from 30 years into the future. So time travel is possible. And my understanding, even though I'm not a physicist and don't understand really all the technical elements, time travel is made possible by the interaction of what are called two Kerr, that's Kerr, two Kerr singularities, which results in particle acceleration. Or more specifically, with the ionization of particles, which is what CERN in Switzerland has been experimenting with for decades. And we've talked before about CERN and what's been going on there, all the strange events and videos. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a bunch of them. If you haven't, go and look them up. I mean, you can actually see spacecraft going through stargates. I mean, it's at least that's what it looks like to me. But the earliest pioneers of particle acceleration experimentation were, in fact, Nikola Tesla and Trump's uncle, John G. Trump, who was, in his own right, he was a brilliant, brilliant physicist who, I believe, was at MIT for a period. I believe he studied there. And in fact, John Trump, Trump's uncle, helped redesign the 12-meter high Van de Graaff generators that Tesla likely used in perfecting this type of technology. Now, while much of the story I'm about to tell you, and of course Jetson White says the same thing in his videos, has the same disclaimer, it's much of it is speculative, of course, just like some of the other things we've been talking about tonight. But there's a lot of evidence to support this theory that Trump and Tesla were actually friends. And they were contemporaries, I believe, in New York City in the 1920s during the Roaring '20s. So it's very, very likely, because they were both very brilliant men. They both had very good hearts and wanted the best for humanity. And they both had similar goals and interests. So it's very, very likely that they became acquainted, because Tesla was, he was well known. I mean, he was publishing all types of fascinating, groundbreaking work. And it's very likely that a man like Trump, John G. Trump, again, we're talking about, took an interest in that. And that they became acquainted while they were in the same area. I believe studying electrical engineering. So Tesla, he discovered the capability of particle acceleration. I think it was back in 1896. I may be wrong on that date. And by the way, Trump also helped develop the X-ray machine at MIT, Trump's uncle. But it's very likely that when Tesla discovered time travel and he realized that it was possible, he then quickly realized that if his patents ever fell into the wrong hands, it could be absolutely disastrous. And so, as the theory goes, he entrusted John G. Trump with the secrets of his discoveries, which he knew would be vital to saving humanity in the not too distant future. I mean, clearly, if the man discovered time travel, he looked into the future and he saw what was coming, and he realized that he was probably the only person alive who could do something about it. And that if his brilliant inventions and discoveries ever got into the wrong hands, that humanity would have absolutely no hope of ever escaping. So Tesla, what he did brilliantly was he patented his discoveries in fragmented pieces, leaving out key details which he entrusted to Trump to prevent the enemy from stealing. And he also reportedly entrusted Trump with his death ray technology discoveries. And though I don't know this for sure, it definitely makes me wonder whether the rods of God that we've been hearing so much about are related to that Tesla discovery. I'm not sure, but I suspect they might be. Now, in order to understand, and discover the complexity of this story, you need to understand that according to people who have time traveled, not just John Titor, but Preston Nichols, Al Bielek, and others, they've all agreed that it's not harmful to interact with future or past versions of yourself, of different versions of yourself from different timelines. And it's also possible to travel to different timelines with different versions of yourself. So given that Tesla had developed this technology and had entrusted John G. Trump with it, it's entirely plausible that, like I said, maybe Tesla himself or maybe Tesla and Trump looked ahead into the future, perhaps even visited a future timeline and discovered the horrific plans that lay in store for humanity at the hands of the cabal. So if this is true, it's also possible that these two men were really the progenitors of the Q movement way back in the 1920s. And because of their discoveries about the future, a subsequent covert war to free humanity began and has been raging behind the scenes ever since. And if this theory is true, then it could also explain the Q plus signatures on a lot of the drops, which many of the Anons have suggest two Trumps, perhaps even more, that are currently here on our current timeline, but they're not from here. And it's quite possible that one or more of the Trumps is back from the future, that others may be from the very recent past. There are a lot of different theories. And we're going to discuss this in more detail later, but the photographic evidence is pretty compelling. And when you look at some of the photographic evidence of some of these theories, and Jetson White's videos has a lot of it, really excellent evidence to suggest that, well, this could be actually what's going on. I mean, you look at the photographic evidence taken in consideration with the Q drops, it's pretty compelling. So there really is. I mean, there's a great deal of evidence here that Tesla handed over to Trump the keys of his discoveries, and that ultimately, over time, military intelligence became the guardians of it. Specifically the ONI, or the Office of Naval Intelligence, which, by the way, is located in close proximity to the Kennedy Irregular Warfare Facility. That's interesting. So Jetson suggests that, switching gears a little bit here, going back in time, he talks about the ancient gods of Sumer, which we've talked about as well. Now, he says that the ancient gods of Sumer were benevolent beings that were actually here to help humanity, and that the evil cabal, which is made up of a network of secret societies, hijacked stories about the gods to suit their agenda. Basically, the idea was that the cabal wanted to steal the knowledge the ancient rulers like Horus and Osiris and Isis gave to humanity and was intended to help humanity, they wanted to take all of that knowledge and hoard it for themselves in order to plot for humanity's destruction. So they made up stories. They made up stories about the pyramids and other magnificent structures and how they came to exist on Earth in order to hide the technological prowess and knowledge and understanding of these ancient rulers and the wisdom that they had already bestowed upon humanity. So not only were these early rulers more advanced, they also understood time travel. The design of the early pyramids, like the Pyramid of Giza, it looks exactly like a particle accelerator. I mean, the illustrations that he provides are really quite compelling. The central pyramid is the processor, and the rows of temples beneath it are all the accelerator chips. In fact, Jetson White even suggests that the interior of the Giza pyramid itself was a particle accelerator, or literally a time travel device. And like these early rulers, Tesla knew the same thing that they did. He had discovered the keys to the universe, often referred to as the 369. He talked about his famous quotes. If you knew the magnificence of the 369, you would know that you would have the keys to the universe, or something along those lines. And of course, most people had no idea what he was talking about. But particle accelerators allow access to the original 369 energy structure of this realm. And I'm going to discuss that again probably in a future episode. But fortunately, the White Hats in military intelligence were able to seize control of the shadow military technology which the Cabal was using to lower Earth's frequency and transmit frequencies harmful to human DNA. So sound waves were being transmitted and have been being transmitted all this time, specifically to harm humanity by the Cabal. Of course, that's no big surprise, but they've been doing it from Switzerland, from CERN, which the White Hats, by the way, now control. And they're using the same technology developed at CERN. They're using it to reverse the damage that the Cabal has inflicted on humanity by emitting frequencies to repair human DNA, to sort of start the process of what's really going to get finished off, according to this theory again, when we're levitated up and we're transported into these med beds, these healing centers. And that's where our DNA is really going to be fully repaired. But over time, the White Hats have been using this technology for good. You might remember that the Large Hadron Collider, which I've discussed at CERN, the LHC, was actually shut down in December of 2018. Of course, the cover story was it was being shut down for repairs and maintenance and so on and so forth. That was just the cover story. And then there was this really mysterious mystery wave that appeared out of nowhere very shortly thereafter. It was known as the Mayot mystery wave. That was reported back in December of 2018. And it was understood at the time by those people in the know, those people who had eyes to see, that this was a message to the secret societies that the White Hats are now in control of their technology and they know how to use it. And also, interestingly, on November 11th of 2018, the Earth rang like a bell off of the coast of Africa. And this happened for, I believe it was about 20 minutes. And scientists were completely baffled by it. But again, for those people in the know, this was an indication that the White Hats were in control of this technology. This was a message that they were sending to the Black Hats. And by the way, the wave was described as more like music, and it took 17 seconds to repeat itself. Now, I'm sure the audience recognizes the significance of 1111 and 17. These are two numbers. I mean, certainly these are numbers we've been hearing a lot. These are very symbolic, numeric patterns in this hidden war. And we're learning more and more about the gematria and all of the coded patterns that are out there. I mean, this rabbit hole just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, folks. I mean, this is just absolutely fascinating. And I hope that you folks are enjoying my analysis of this theory. But to me, this was when I started delving into it, I absolutely was. I thought to myself, this is just absolutely amazing. I have to share this with my audience because imagine if this is actually true. What if this is where we're actually headed? But anyway, back to my narrative here. Ever since that initial test, the White Hats have been using this technology in a similar way to the way that early visitors to Earth did, to repair and to accelerate the evolution of human DNA, which is where we're headed. And then, as if that weren't enough, shortly thereafter, on December 27th of 2018, the White Hats sent yet another signal by turning the night sky blue over Queens, New York, in what's been called Operation Blue Sky, which was a cosmic particle in ignition of artificially ionized plasma patterns into the atmosphere that made the night sky look blue. So in essence, what's been happening is that the White Hats are using all of this advanced technology, some of which has been seized from the cabal, while others no doubt are well-kept secrets stemming from Tesla's discoveries, as well as non-terrestrial tech given by the Alliance to assist in humanity's ascension and the healing of our DNA. But indeed, the White Hats have been using the technology to repair the damage done to our DNA, which is very, very encouraging, by reversing their own technology for good. And in the process, the good guys are gradually using this technology as well to restore Earth to its original frequency, which again was hijacked, like I explained, and systematically lowered by the enemy. And so what they're doing is they're raising the vibratory rate of Earth's frequency to what it once was as God created. And Jetson White, he provides visual evidence of the Schumann resonance chart, which spiked inexplicably 2 months in a row. It spiked for exactly 24 hours in a row, which is statistically impossible to artificially create. So the frequency of the Earth is changing. It's rising. And he points out that the human brain naturally syncs up with whatever Earth's Schumann resonance is, which, by the way, was artificially lowered to the cabal, I believe, to 7.83 hertz. And so there's been this ongoing campaign behind the scenes to use advanced physics to repair our DNA and to restore our brains to proper function. And so as Earth's frequency is restored back to the 13.13 hertz, the poles, Earth's poles, will be restored to their neutral position. And this is what's known as a magnetic pole reversal. Now, prior to the White Hat intervention, the secrets of advanced physics of this realm were a well-kept secret by the 13 bloodline families, like we've discussed. And they've used this knowledge and this technology to systematically weaken and destroy humanity. By lowering the heartbeat or the frequency of Earth, the cabal has been able to suppress the true power of humanity. Because we are naturally in tune with the frequency of our home planet. So when the original frequency is restored, we'll be once again in natural alignment, which will usher back in all of our hidden human attributes, all of those powers out there that people can't even imagine that we have. They're being told that humanity have these unbelievable powers. It's all been hidden from us, folks. It's been suppressed in every possible way that you can imagine. But all that's going to change. Because what happens is, at 13.13 hertz, the primordial cells of humanity are restored and the pineal gland is activated, which then creates a cascade of 5D shifts within our body and our consciousness. And all 64 DNA light codes will be activated, and the attunement of the DNA with a resonant frequency will acclimate our bodies to 5D consciousness. And this is all possible because everything on Earth is magnetic and thus can be manipulated by sound waves. And Jetson actually even makes the case that the last trump heard in the Bible before the rapture may be the 5D magnetic sound blast that I talked about, created by the technology that is in white hat control. And so it's possible that this 5D blast could literally be used to transport humanity out of this timeline and onto a different one, perhaps even a future time. But an entirely new beginning for humanity. That's what this idea is. That the rapture is actually a technological event triggered by sound, like I said, both in the air and underwater. So in essence, humanity's exit from this prison planet and our deliverance from this evil is a time travel operation that coincides with the Bible as the rapture. How have the White Hats and Trump always been so far ahead of the enemy? How has Q been able to predict the future? How does future prove past? How does any of this make sense without the existence of time travel? If you're asking yourself whether or not you believe this, ask yourself that. Could be. It could be that our exit from this planet is a time travel operation that coincides with what the Bible talked about as the rapture. But it will be both a spiritual and a technological event. And it all traces back to the work of Tesla on time travel. And by the way, there's a lot more to this story that I'm not getting into tonight. And if the audience enjoyed, I'll certainly make a follow-up to this and explain some more. But I wanted to give you the basic idea, a 30,000-foot view of this theory, because I think it's fascinating. But all this stuff traces back to the work of Tesla on time travel and also on radiant energy, which I didn't get into tonight. Perhaps I'll discuss that next time. And this was indeed the genesis of the brilliant master plan to save the world almost 100 years ago. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. You can certainly let me know in the comments. I'd be fascinated to hear, your perspectives on this. If you haven't joined my Telegram, please do so. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and do everything that you can to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for all of your kind words. I also wanted to let everybody know that Gene Decode and I rescheduled, and we're going to be doing our 4th interview on September 7th. So I'm very, very excited. So you guys can mark your calendars for that one. And I will be back soon, hopefully before then, with another report if I have some time. But until then, once again, thank each and every one of you, and God bless. Patriot out.